Guten Yardening. Before we get into our video today, I wanted to show you two of our plants, our tropical plants, that we haven't shown before. This is a lemon plant. This has actually produced several lemons for us already. And this is a clementine. Now, neither of these plants can stay outside in the wintertime because we're here in zone 5 and they wouldn't make it at all. But we keep them inside. They overwinter inside with us. But in the summer, they just really thrive. During the video today, I'm going to show you some of the developments, like these apples, that we've had in our garden. But I'm also going to take you through a little harvest as well, because we got some vegetables and some fruit that just have to come up. This is our new garden space, which hasn't been developed at all yet, but that's where our ash tree was, and that's also the reason why we only have 2 apples left on that tree. Unfortunately, one of the limbs from the ash tree, as it was coming down, hit the apple tree and knocked a few apples off. But you know what? It's a small price to pay, I think, for a good removal. You know, some of our plants in the hay are doing quite well. This one has mostly male flowers on it so far, but they're doing quite well, and others don't seem to like the hay bale so much. So again, you live and you learn in this gardening process. Some nice apples. Where the rabbits got a hold of this apple tree this winter and just absolutely went to town. Fortunately, it survived, but these two are supposed to be the same age and they don't look it right now. But these are actually columnar apple trees, which means they're a variety that's only going to be about 3 feet wide, even at full maturity. So they'll grow up 10 to 15 feet, but only 3 feet wide. So they're really good to have along the edge of your property. Our grapes have just taken over the trellis here. It's almost so someone my height can't get through. That's not so bad. And they're starting to really fill out. Different sizes all around, but they're getting there. Look at the view. Every day we get this view. The grapes are going crazy, and you know, we learned that we're not the only ones that like grapes. Well, the grape leaves. The Japanese beetles are big fans as well, so we've been out here with the soapy water, brushing them off as best we can, trying to save our plants from all the trauma. Tomatoes doing well. You know, I have no idea why I've not had an issue with it in the past, but our cucumber plants this year have struggled mightily. They've just been struggling left and right. We haven't really pulled much from our cucumber plants. And our potatoes are starting to die back. And based on the harvest we just got from some of our containers, that might not be such a bad thing. These are developing nicely. We got a couple more weeks on these. The height of these grapes. And they're all developing at different rates, these grape plants, in terms of the fruit on them. These are definitely getting bigger. As you can see in comparison to my hand, they're not nearly as big as some of the other ones. Still got lots of black currants. This year, the birds seem to go much more heavily toward these pink champagne currants. Maybe it's because they taste so much better. I don't know. Look at that. Boy, anticipation. With gardening, you have to be patient. And we're not even in an area where we can grow something like pineapple, which would take 2 years. But we still have to learn patience. And we still got some flowers on some of our potato plants. Right here. So you can tell they haven't died back. This is the potatoes in the straw. Still going, although if you look right in here, some of them have definitely died back more than others. No idea what's under this straw. I'm really excited to find out. This tomato plant took, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks of sitting still, doing nothing. And then all of a sudden it just shot up and it's almost 5 feet tall. You see the tomatoes right in there. I apologize if it's a little bit windy, because it is windy, but that means it's actually kind of cool out. First time in a while. So even though this part of the garden seems to need amending, the Swiss chard is happy as can be. And the Brussels sprouts don't seem to be doing too poorly either. There's one of the wasps climbing around in there too. You can see a melon that's just started on this one over in the corner. This melon is all isolated over by himself, planted amongst the volunteer broccoli that came back from last year. And I mentioned that our cucumbers were struggling. I wasn't kidding. We've got some work to do. We've got some definite work to do. This little cucumber right here is not happy. Pretty soon you're going to see some of the vegetables though that we need to get out of the ground. This one's not quite there. Give this one another day or two. Our peppers are looking nice. And there are definitely some peppers we need to pick. Woo, look at that. And our eggplant, let's see if we can get back in here. Just a few eggplant that we need to pick. Look at that one, it's huge. All right, let's get these picked. We've done more of a single stem approach to these tomatoes, which we haven't necessarily done in years past. And so they're heading upwards and we're just now starting to see the development we like. And we're starting to see, let's get this guy off here. We're starting to see some of the progression of the ripening of the tomatoes, which you can actually see right here. Look at these are ready to come off. This will be our first tomatoes harvested of the year. All right, let's get them. There are actually 9 different varieties of tomatoes here. I call them garden candy because I come out here and just pop them in my mouth. Just can't go wrong with some nice fresh tomatoes. I think we may have left our Swiss chard just a bit long here. This needs to come with us. Now, if you're just not looking very closely, you might miss something that's being hidden by the collard greens and the Swiss chard and the broccoli. And that is right underneath here. Some of our cauliflower that's ready to come up. And our broccoli, where it was just a little bit of broccoli, too small a couple weeks ago, these heads need to come out right away. Oh, this one's already loosening up. We're gonna get this out of the ground and get it stored. This one is very loose. It's getting ready to bolt, so we had to get this one out of the ground. This kohlrabi is ready. We're gonna get this one. This is the first time we've actually successfully grown cabbage. And this one's not ready yet. This purple cabbage isn't ready yet, but the green cabbage is definitely ready. And I've noticed that the wasps really like this cabbage for some reason, so we'll see them flying around. And what's even cooler to me is that some of these cabbage have developed two heads. Actually, two of the three that we planted here developed two heads. The cabbage is really firm at the top. It's solid, so it's ready to come up out of the ground. And we're not going to leave the outer leaves. They say that in the right temperatures, in the right weather, it could form another looser, like a small head, but we're going to just pull it out as is. Just about the right size. Our juice garden is still producing. Our corn, which we thought we might lose in the windstorm that we had recently, the wind and rainstorm, it all got flattened. It took hours coming out here trying to straighten it up, and we did, and it's now looking like it's going to make some progress and give us some corn. Potatoes in our bags here. These still have a good bit of life, it looks like, left in them, so these aren't dying back nearly as quickly as some of the other potatoes and containers that we had before. But I want to take you back here and show you our onions, because we topped these onions off and we showed that video. We had that video for you. If you didn't watch it, you should check that one out, where we harvested our onion greens and then we froze them or we dehydrated them, and they're still growing and they're bulbing up. And you can see some of the size. Here, this is a good example. Some of the size we've got on these onions. So we're going to take a couple in for dinner tonight as well. That is a nice sized bulb. In one of our earlier videos, we talked about planting in compost, unfinished compost, and we also talked about how some plants volunteer. You can see what the development looks like down in here of some kind of squash. This is coming in completely volunteer, not even planted, right beside our sweet potato in a container. Oh, we have so much sweet potato this year. Planted so much more sweet potato this year. Here's another sweet potato. Oh, you might be wondering what this is. It's to catch our compost tea in. little container underneath there. We can water the compost, get some really nice compost tea. So you can see some of our sweet potatoes here. I'm not kidding when I say we have a whole bunch of sweet potatoes planted. We have another keyhole raised bed filled with them as well, along with about 7 different containers, as you can see some of them here. And this is our biggest sweet potato bed. It's kind of, you can't see the outlines of the bed because this foliage is so extensive. And we're really hopeful for a great harvest from these. You know, we've planted probably half this amount in this bed last year. This is a 6x6 bed. And we found that there were quite a few open spaces in the bed where there weren't any potatoes. So we overplanted a little bit this year just to see what the results would be. But our most recent planting of the sweet potatoes is our fall crop here. And we planted these as a part of our succession planting. So this is where we took out our multicolored carrots before. And we were able to plant these with about 80 plus, 80 couple days before first frost, which hopefully comes a little later this year, so we can guarantee a bigger harvest. But look how beautiful the foliage is on these different colors. Oh, I should take you around to show you the potatoes. We just harvested the potatoes from one of our 2 blue containers, and I'm guessing we have, 15 pounds of potatoes that we got out of here. And this is going to be another succession planting. This will become a carrot bed. Ooh, it's like we're in the jungle. Some of our corn leading up to compost row. Oh, let's look down in here and see. Oh, okay, we got a cucumber down in here. This one seems to be doing about the best of any. I don't know if it's because it's right by the compost. Sometimes when the rain comes, the compost, the liquid, maybe its own compost tea, runs down in that direction since it's a little bit downhill. Oh, our compost plants might be growing pretty quickly. Maybe this tomato plant is taking over everything, even though we just found some caterpillars in there today. I'm going to show you that video if you keep an eye on the channel. Oh, I think we need to harvest this zucchini. And some peppers. This one looks like it's got a little bit of damage on it, but it's going to be delicious regardless. We have to get that pepper. And this summer squash needs to come with us. One thing to mention about this plant is that it was the one that was really attacked by squash bugs and powdery mildew. And we removed the powdery mildew, we removed the squash bugs, and we put the foil around the base here. And we've been getting a steady production from it from that time. Just like we've been getting an excellent production from our vegetables in the compost throughout. If you've been watching our videos, which we hope you have, you'll know that last week we planted some potatoes that we had purchased from the store, little fingerling potatoes that we allowed for about a week, allowed the eyes to sprout a little bit, and they're already coming through in our raised bed. So when we say it's not too late to get started with these for a fall crop, now's the time. This is our raised bed where we had the sugar snap peas and we had our lettuce, and we had to take that out because it was bolting and turning bitter, and the sugar snap peas were just done. It was way too hot. And so we transplanted some butternut squash that we had in containers here. And you'll notice the wilting. That's normal. It's just a midday heat wilt. It'll perk right back up at night. And we have a lot more purple beans. Let's get some of those. Our purple kohlrabi have taken their good old time, but we are starting to see some development of a bulb on some of them. So that's exciting. Our cucumbers, on the other hand, if I haven't stressed that enough in this video, I don't know. They're just not enjoying life at all. No, that's not a good shot. Let's come around here. Yeah, these cucumbers have definitely expressed their malcontent with us. Getting a little bit here in terms of melon. We have a few growing on the other side as well. Some tomatoes coming in. Some morning glories are starting to climb up. I know a lot of people don't like morning glories because they can, once you get them started, they can be hard to stop. But we are growing them right beside some peas, and we'll see how they play out. Here's some more of our melon. This one's coming along pretty nicely. Succession planting. We've got our carrots ready to come in as well. Oh, we need some basil too. Well, we still got a few of our black raspberries left on the bush here. They're being picked quite often by somebody. It might be me. It might be everybody in the family. But we got to tend to this one and get it ready for next year. So we'll have some cutting to do. I'm going to show you how to deal with that in a new video coming out soon. These raspberries are different from our black raspberry because these are everbearing. So you can see some of the older canes, which are brown, have already been producing for us here early in the season. They're delicious. And then we have the newer canes here, which are green. So we get to enjoy fruit from this berry twice versus the black raspberry, which we only get the singular harvest from. Our beans are looking great. Let's take a sneak peek underneath. Yeah, let's get some of these. Our pole beans are also producing really well, so we're going to grab a few of those too. This is our most shaded garden, and we're still getting a lot of production, even though this is just about as much sun as we're going to get until, I don't know, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening when we finally get a decent amount on here. But we've got our Brussels sprouts, and we still don't have any sprouts coming in on the sides yet. We're also seeing a little bit more damage. You can see, I think maybe the cabbage worm, we're not sure, but the items in the brassica family are suffering a little bit more these days. We've got our Swiss chard here, again, growing huge, so we're going to have some of this for dinner tonight. And our beans, well, our beans are doing okay. Our pole beans are doing all right, the ones that are still alive, but we have some that the rabbits decided would make a better meal, and they cut them off right underneath, so they're not growing anymore. But we still got enough, and we planted enough. We were fortunate enough to be able to do that, so it's not the end of the world for us. Our celery is getting huge. This is probably, I don't know, 18 inches tall now, this piece, and we use it every single day in our smoothies, but we have enough of it that we have to find a method to try to store it. If you have a method that you've used, you should let us know in the comments. That'd be great. And here, our last broccoli over here that needs to be picked and harvested. 2. In previous years, we have struggled so much trying to get any kind of harvest of summer squash. This year, we figured something out because we're having a lot better success, even though we still struggle with powdery mildew and even squash bug from time to time. We're getting enough of a harvest, enough of a consistent harvest, we're doing just fine. Zucchini coming in over here, and you can see some of that powdery mildew that I'm talking about. I haven't shown too much in the way of our fruit trees because they're all pretty new to us, but this pear tree has produced a couple of pears this year. We're excited to see what these taste like when they mature fully. We have our patio garden, our peppermint, which they say is an invasive species, and I can tell you based on how much we take off of this to drink tea and how fast it grows, I understand completely. Our onions are looking great. The bulbs are bulbing out beautifully on these. We've got zucchini coming in. You can see the foil that we have wrapped around the base, just like over in our compost area, to protect against any insects from boring in. Tomato, our peppers, our basil's looking nice. And our sunflowers looking like it's going to have something here at the top pretty soon. A little flower at the top here pretty soon. And the one I'm most excited about, you'd think would be this tomato, because I love tomatoes. And look at how many tomatoes are on here. Whew. And the one I'm most excited about right now is the cucamelon. And the cucamelon is looking like it's got some fruit. Okay, they're not that big yet, but I see 15 or 20 of them on here, and I'm excited to sample them when they get ready. Here's some of the peppers that we planted from our compost recently. And last but not least, our two raspberry plants that we've shown you before, a black raspberry and our golden raspberry. The black raspberry, just like our other black raspberry, even though it's a different variety, will fruit one time, and then we have to trim the canes back. You can see the new canes coming in, that fresh green color along the stem, and you can see the canes that have already fruited are this brown color. And then our golden raspberry, you can see if there are any red. Oh, this one's ready. They just, such a big fruit and so enjoyable. Sometimes, you know, I think that the flavor of this is almost like a coconut. It's so good. And this is the raspberry that doesn't have any thorns. It's like an extra bonus. Delicious fruit, no pain. We hope you enjoyed the tour and the few harvest shots that we showed you. But I have to let you in on a little secret. We harvested way more than that. In fact, our trip to the backyard and store added a few items that we've never harvested in our house before. We added the onions this time around, the white and the red onions, our golden beets, our first tomatoes of the year, and it's taken everything in my power not to eat this right now. Some of our peppers, which you've seen before, our eggplant, and this is our first of the bigger variety of eggplant. Our summer squash, more kohlrabi, the first head of lettuce we've ever grown in our household, and a whole bunch of broccoli. This harvest is so amazing given the fact that we're taking food out of our garden every day. And this is the bounty that we still get to look forward to. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, leave us a thumbs up, share, subscribe. Leave us comments about what you're growing in your gardens. And remember, when you're with us, you're good to grow.